These are the notes for Unit 8, Adding and Subtracting Rational Fractions. If you don't remember how to add and subtract fractions, which is constants, you might want to review this paper. Ask your teacher if you do not have it. And this will give you a little review on how to add if your denominators are the same or where they're different. How do you change your denominator by finding the least common denominator? After you review that, then you can start on these notes. So if you have a common denominator, don't forget to circle whether you're doing the workshop or the video and write your name and period here. Or if you're doing research, list your source. So if you have the common denominator, then you can just combine the numerators. So if you're adding, my denominators are the same, you just combine your numerators. So you have b plus 1 plus b minus 1. You combine like terms, you get 2b, and then your 1's cancel. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Your denominator stays the same. Now when you subtract, remember when subtracting you need to change the signs of everything in the numerator after the negative sign. So our denominators are the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and write my denominator, and I'm going to combine like terms. I have b minus 4 here, that stays the same. This is a minus, so you can change that to a plus and then change the signs on everything after that. So I'm going to have a minus b and a plus 1. When I combine my b's, they're going to cancel out. b minus b gives me 0, and then a negative 4 plus 1 gives me negative 3. Negative 3 over 4b plus 24. And that is your answer. Now if you do not have a common denominator, then you need to find the least common multiple. So here's an easy one to start off with. I have 4x over 3xy plus 4 over 3x2. So my least common multiple is going to be the combination of something that both of these will go into. I have a 3 in both of them, so I can do a 3. I have an x squared. This one just has an x. So I need to have an x squared as part of my least common multiple. And then this has a y, but this one doesn't. So I'm going to have to include the y. So to get your common denominator from, this is going to be now your common denominator, but you have to get there. So you're going to multiply your numerator and denominator of each fraction by what is needed to get the denominator to equal to the least common multiple, or sometimes least common denominator. So my first fraction, 4x over 3xy. What do I need to get to my least common multiple? I need another x. I need to get to an x squared. So if I multiply that denominator by an x, I will get to 3x squared plus y. But really, I don't want to change the value of this. So this x over x, what is that? That is equal to 1. So I'm not changing the value. So if I multiply it by the same thing over x, that's multiplying by 1. So 4x times x is 4x squared. And then I have my least common multiple. Plus, the same thing. I have 3x squared. I need to get to 3x squared y. So the only thing I'm missing is a y. So I'm going to multiply by y over y, which this is 1, remember? So I'm not changing the value. So 4 times y is 4y, and then over 3x squared plus y. 3x squared times y. Now that I have everything with the common denominator, I can write that common denominator and just combine my numerators. So 4x squared plus 4y over 3x squared y. I can't simplify it any further, so that's my answer. So now I have a subtraction formula expression. 2x over 3 minus 6x over 5x. My least common multiple, this time I'm just going to have to multiply 3 times 5x, because there's nothing in common between these two. And so I'm going to get 15x. So let's take my first fraction, 2x over 3. What do I need to multiply 3 by to get to 15x? That is going to be 5x. 5x over 5x. Now, let's do my second fraction, 6y. Sometimes my y's look like 4, sorry. 6y over 5x. To get 5x to 15x, I need to multiply my numerator and denominator by 3. 3 over 3. So when I multiply here, I get 2x times 5x, and that gives me 10x squared. And then my denominator will be 15x. which is what I wanted it to be, minus 6y times 3 is 18y over 15x. Now that my denominators are the same, I can combine the numerators. This is a minus, so if you change that to a plus, you change that sign, everything after that. So I'm going to have 10x squared minus 18y over 15x. So let's look at a couple more examples. At the bottom of the page, I have 4n over n plus 6 plus 2n over n plus 5. So I have two expressions, and they are added to each other, not multiplied, and they really don't have anything in common, so my least common multiple is going to be multiplying these two, n plus 6 times n plus 5. And I do not have to multiply that out. That will be sufficient. So I'm going to multiply. I'm going to need to find my least common multiple. I found my least common multiple. Now I need to multiply each fraction to get to that. So I'll take my first fraction, 4n over n plus 6. What do I need to get to it? I need to multiply by n plus 5. What I multiply the denominator by, I have to also multiply the numerator by. Plus, now let's write our second fraction, 2n over n plus 5. To get to our least common multiple, I am missing the n plus 6. And you could go ahead and put parentheses around here if you wanted to. N plus 6. So now let's multiply our numerators out and then combine my terms. So I've got my denominator. My denominator is n plus 6 times n plus 5. It doesn't matter which order these are in. It's the same. So 4n times n is 4n squared. 4n times 5 is 20n. So I've got this first one multiplied. Now let's do the second one, and I can go ahead and combine them. 2n times n is 2n squared, and then 2n times a positive 6 gives me 12n. So now I can combine like terms. I have an n squared here, and an n squared here. 4n squared plus 2n squared gives me 6n squared. And then I have a 20n and a 12n, and that gives me 32n over n plus 6 times n plus 5. Did I add this right? This should have been 2n 6, 12. I think that's right. I think the notes that I'm looking off of are wrong. So that's what that should have been. If I'll see that my mistake, then come tell me, and you can get a Jolly Rancher. This other one over here is worked out. 5r plus 4 over 2r plus 5 minus 3 over 5. So my least common multiple, I'm going to have to just multiply them together. 5 times 2r plus 5. So to get to my least common multiple for my first fraction, I have to multiply it by 5. What I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. And then my second fraction, negative 3/5, I need the 2r plus 5. So multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2r plus 5. So when I multiply this out, I get 5r plus 20 over 5 times 2r plus 5. You don't have to multiply this out. Minus, and when I multiply these, I get 6r plus 15 over 5 times 2r plus 5. And remember, this is minus. So you're going to have to change the signs on each thing. So both of these will be negative. And that's what we have here. 5r plus 20 minus 6r minus 15 all over our least common multiple or denominator, 5 times 2r plus 5. And when I combine like terms, I have 5r minus 6r. I get a negative r. And 20 minus 15 is 5. And so there you have your answer. Now, if you look at the back of the page, you have 12 problems that you can work here. Now, these are pretty simplistic, and on the quiz and test, you're going to have some where you're going to have to do a little bit more factoring than what you have here. So we have an additional sheet that your teacher should give you. So your teacher can tell you how many of these they expect you to do. You may need to do all of them or part of them. And then there's this other paper that says Add and Subtract Rationals Additional Practice. Make sure you get this and work at least half of these, if not all of them, because you're going to need to know how to do these to be able to pass your quiz and your test. Good luck, and ask your teacher or a fellow student if you need help.